Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack, and today I'm going to be giving you a little bit of a buyer's guide on the sporting models of the 306, and we will find out how good my own car is. I bought this a couple of months ago, and today we're going to pug one off. These guys are real super experts on these older Peugeots, including 205s. I used to take Pepe there, my 1.9 GTI. And we'll find out if this is any good or not. So just a brief rundown on the sporting 306s. So you had three basic versions. There was the XSI, which was the Bogo 8-valve engine, 125 horsepower. And then at the time when they first came out, there was also the S16, which is a 16-valve version. Now in those days, the car to pick, at least initially, was definitely the XSI. The S16 had quite a rough, peaky engine, just didn't really seem to work as well. Chassis-wise, they were identical. The XSI came with steel wheels with plastic covers, the S16 with some alloys. The 306 was always pretty much peak of its class in terms of handling. And indeed, this one that I have, which is a GTI-6, talk to you about that more in a second, the handling is absolutely, for me, spellbinding for a hatch. I'm sure the modern hatches are more accomplished. They keep body roll better in check, that they're better all round, but I've never driven a hatch that drives quite, and steers especially, quite like one of these things. They have incredible ride handling compromisers. So at very low speeds, the ride is a little bit firm, but as soon as you get moving, it gets that French fluency, and yet there's a good amount of body control, very little understeer. They are just little magical things. So the last model, before we take it to Matt and have a look around, is the GTI-6. The S16 was criticised really for having an engine which was too rough, it didn't quite work. The GTI-6 moved things on. Instead of 150 horsepower, the new engine had 167 horsepower, which in those days was very much top of the category. They were all 150, 155, so this had significantly more power. Not just that, but they gave it a 6-speed gearbox, which I'm pretty sure was an absolute first and was a real talking point at the time. Right, everybody, we're here with Matt from Pug One Off. Matt founded Pug One Off. He knows 205, well, he knows all the Peugeots, I think, pretty much. He's going to give us a quick rundown on the main points to look at, and then we're going to have a look at my own car and see how good it is.
Okay, so you've actually bought this off a previous customer of ours, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I think we saw it before, did a little bit of work, cam belt and a clutch, right? Okay, good. So shall we have a look? Yeah? Okay, so when you're buying a GTI-6, things to look out for: ticking engines. That can be a costly nightmare. What it boils down to normally is two partially bent intake valves from a cam belt failure. So that's a full head rebuild, or if you carry on driving it, worst case scenario, engine failure, complete loss. So that's something to bear in mind. Stiff clutches as well, that can be a big problem, and I know that we did the clutch on this one because it was stiff. They don't seem to slip, they just get harder and harder to press down. Often the clutch cable can be confused for the clutch because both would create a stiff clutch situation. When you do need to change a clutch cable and the car's got aircon, that can be a particular nightmare because of the how busy it is down here, getting into the bottom of the pedal box with the aircon pipes and things like that. So not the easiest of routing. Heater matrices as well, they can be a problem. If the inside of the car starts to smell of antifreeze, or you're getting steam on the inside of the windscreen, that's a dash out job. Not a problem, just something to be aware of. So aside from the engine, mechanically, gearboxes are pretty good. There's been a few incidents of third gear and sixth gear stripping cogs. It's not that common, but it can be when you increase the power. Gear oil needs to be replaced every 36,000 miles. The cam belt has to be replaced every 60,000 miles. We're going to be looking at your car today. We're going to be looking at bushes. We're going to be looking at the rear axle bushes, front wishbone bushes, and playing the rear axle in the radius arm bearings. And then we'll move on to check for rust in certain areas. Yeah. So things to look out for on the paintwork. The bonnet and roof tend to peel, lacquer peel, things like that. You can get a bit of rust around the rear windscreen. If you've got any electronic faults within the driver's door, that can be broken door loom. We'll have a look at that and give it a general check over and just make sure everything's looking good. So we've had a listen to the engine. That all sounds good, no ticking. You have told me that it cuts out at junctions. There's a few possible reasons for this, stepper motor being one of them, the idle control valve, possible lambda sensor, map sensor, throttle position sensor. So we'll plug it in and we'll have a look at that later. There is one other thing that we've noticed. One of the areas that 306s can rust and people miss is just underneath the servo there. There's a bulkhead seam, and you can see you can see a little bit of surface corrosion there.
Yeah.
We don't want that to get any worse, so I think protect that for now as it is, you know.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about some common areas for oil leaks. This car's really dry, actually. Not a problem to see a little bit of residue around here. That's the rear main oil seal and its side seals. Very common to have residue here. We don't want a dripping leak, though. That would involve gearbox out, flywheel off, sump off to fix that problem. So that's good news. Power steering ram, that's another common one. This one's really dry. So that's good news as well. Let's talk about some common areas for rust. This is the major problem with 306s. Just here by the side of the subframe, where anyone's badly jacked here. It's kind of like a natural starting point for rust. We're looking at the jacking points as well, where people haven't used rubber feet, they might have folded the jacking points over. All of this area can be bad. This car's brilliant, yeah, you know, nothing's going on there. This is all very solid, same again this side. So yeah, you should be pleased with that. That's good. Let's move to the rear. Now they can suffer from a lot of surface rust here. It doesn't normally cause a major problem, but again, this car's lovely, not much going on there at all. Boot floor's all nice. Yeah, I think you've got a good one there. Brake lines at the back can be rusty. I can see this car has had a couple of new lines. If you look up there, that's got a new copper nickel line made there. All new lines on the arms. Yeah. So the OE dampers are pretty good. We've got some surface corrosion here, but I've never known one to fail like that. And leaks are rare as well. So knowing that you plan to underseal the car, I think that'll be fine. Suspension, starting at the rear, common problems. These subframe mounting bushes at the front, they're meant to be slightly flexible, but they do get worn out, especially on the pothole side on the left. And you know, if you lift the axle, you can normally see the play in it. This car's not too bad. When you get a noise of thudding over bumps and when you're on the brakes, that's normally the front bush up there. The other main axle problem, which is renowned on all Peugeots with a torsion bar rear axle, is the radius arm bearings, which are situated there and there in the tube, which creates the hinge for your arm. They're a needle roller bearing, and themselves and the arm shaft fail, and you get play in the wheel. Quite hard to feel unless the shockers are disconnected, but you can just about give it a good tug in the air and see if there's any play. Back at the front again, from a maintenance point of view, we've got split track rod end gaiters, not specific to 306, but you know, we're going to change those today to put two new track rod ends on there. We've got these are very common on a 306, the wishbone rear bush. the rubber separates, just perishes, and then you get too much play in your arm. It can feel a little bit loose at the front end. So we'll replace them as well, and then set the tracking up.
So they're loose on this car, yeah?
Yeah, you can see splits in the rubber, and they're just moving a little bit too much.
Okay.
Also, we came across a split rack gaiter there, which should really be an MOT fail, so we're going to change that for you.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just check for play here. I can feel something there. That's actually play in the track rod end that we're going to change because the gate is split, so that's a win. Same there. Check for wheel bearing. That's all good. There's that stiffness, but there's no play here.
Okay.
Axle feels good. Yep, both sides seem okay. So you've told me that you've got a brake pull one side. One thing I have noticed, this wheel's free, and this wheel it's got a bit of a bind to it. So we're going to take apart the caliper, see if we've got a stuck piston or sliders, and work our way back from there and see if that improves it.
So how did it go, Matt?
So we've replaced the track rod ends, we've replaced the wishbone rear bushes, we've done the steering rack gaiter, we've replaced your noisy exhaust for a quieter option, we've changed your stepper motor to try and achieve a good idle, we've done the tracking. Yeah, I think we're ready to go.
So what do you think of the car then?
All round, it's a really good example, not rusty at all. Obviously you've had the paintwork done, so it's looking lovely. Yeah, now that we've finished those maintenance jobs, it's a really tidy example.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. I'm really, really happy with everything you've done today. Everybody, if you have an old, actually not even old, like even the more modern stuff you do, so a French car, Citroën or Peugeot, obviously they're wizards with these, with the earlier cars, but there's a DS3 there as well, more modern car. So anything like that, if you're based close to Brackley in Oxfordshire, that's where they're based. They also have an online shop for various parts, hop-ups, all that kind of thing, so have a look at that as well. I'll put the links in the video description. Thank you all so much for watching, really appreciate it. Please do follow if you haven't already. There'll be some more adventures to come with the 306. Thank you and see you soon.